things you need to know and do before leaving China.
I think my number one tip for everyone who's left China, obviously having been here for 10 years, I've seen people go, I've seen people come, and just, you just seen what to learn to do and what to learn not to do as well too. And I think one of the big things is just to start.
And welcome back to Journey with Jenny, and I'm really excited to have another one of my gorgeous friends here, Serene Wong. And today we're going to talk about everything regarding leaving China. A lot of people asking each other questions about, what we need to leave China, what documentation we need to bring with us, etc. So I thought, let's just do a video about it. And with me, I have Serene, who previously used to work in HR and has been here for a long time and is very, very knowledgeable in this area and in this topic. So I thought, let's have her on. So thank you, Serene.
Yeah, thanks Jenny for having me.
Yes.
Really, really excited to be on here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
My name's Serene. I am from Hong Kong and Canada. I've got dual citizenship and I have been in Beijing distant for 10 years. Like Jenny mentioned, I worked in human resources and I've just recently taken some time off to work on MBA applications, and that's the reason why I'm also relocating from China, is to go pursue an MBA back in my home country of Canada coming January. And so so it's a very exciting time. A lot has changed, and especially with part of my childhood and upbringing, I actually spent some time in China as well too, in Beijing particular, growing up. So this will be my second time leaving Beijing, leaving China, this stint around. Actually,
it's not in one of my questions, but I kind of ask everybody who's on, but how has your COVID experience been like here in Beijing?
I was, away out of China when COVID first hit Beijing, but I really felt that, after some time away, I was like, okay, I need to come back. This is what felt home to me. So I came back for work purposes and for just to get back into my routine as well too. But it was interesting because I think early on I knew, I was like, okay, traveling, which is one of my, passions and hobbies, wasn't going to be happening for a good amount of time. That was a big one. And also at that point, I think it was February 2020. So the rest of the world hadn't started, experiencing COVID. Yes, my sisters who were in Canada had a very different perspective about that as well too. My parents were in China. They live in southern China in Guangdong province. That was very interesting, not knowing like, okay, can I go see them? And so that, at least, for me personally, I've been able to visit very limited a number of times to go see my parents. So I've had some family connection, but beyond that, it's been also quite difficult. So I mean, the last time I saw my parents was a good year and a half ago, and we're in the same country. That's the crazy thing. So it's been very interesting. It's been difficult, I think, from a work perspective, because I was working in human resources when COVID first hit. It was a lot of, I think, mental and emotional weight that you carry as someone in HR, just feeling, you need to care for your employees, you need to care for your colleagues. At that point we had colleagues, elsewhere as well too, some were in China, some were outside of China, and just making sure everyone was okay and doing okay, facilitating, okay, do they need to return back to the country, things like that. And thankfully, I didn't have the same experience as a lot of HR did, especially in international schools, with just trying to facilitate returns of teachers and other employees back into the country. I know that was a lot of work, big load, but it was still quite a bit, I think, on that end. Besides the care, it was also, the economy was affected, and we know that, job markets were affected and businesses were affected. So, I also had to, be involved helping in some difficult decisions with certain employees and their jobs and their careers at our company as well too at that time. So that was very tricky as well too. So
I was going to say, it must have been a really tough job. Okay, now we're getting to the meat of this conversation and the main meal, if you like. So things you need to know and do before leaving China.
Yeah, I think my number one tip for everyone who's left China, obviously having been here for 10 years, I've seen people go, I've seen people come, you just seen what to learn to do and what to learn not to do as well too. And I think one of the big things is just to start everything early. If you know and you have a departure time frame, even if you don't have flights booked, it's just good to start things early, especially with the COVID restrictions and the pandemic that's been going on here. Like the effects of that is that, there's less flights, there's, things might close at any point. So we just don't know when the office might be open for you to get a certain piece of paperwork, or you have to wait until a certain time. So I think in general, just, try to plan early, but also be flexible. I think that's also very key as well too, or else it's very very stressful when you're not able to pivot and to adapt accordingly based on what's going on. But yeah, in general, start early, even if it's just, going through your closet, right? Just going through your clothes and just being like, okay, these are things I'm going to donate, right? Just getting that started is just so helpful instead of waiting till very last minute or the last week. And I think just to also give yourself time, expect that things might take longer.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if you start earlier, then you have the buffer to accommodate for the different things. To know and do, I guess, before you leave China is to get all your paperwork in order. I've known a lot of people who've left China pre-pandemic who ended up having to fly back to China to get their non-criminal paperwork, their non-criminal record, or their tax paperwork because that was required for their jobs, or they had to pay an agent quite a high fee just to get that paperwork remotely, when that can be avoided when you're able to take care of it before you leave.
Yeah.
And even if you don't end up using it, it's still better safe than sorry. There's no such thing as just, can I just get it online and just download it and print it out later?
Yeah.
No, it's all in person, it's all physical copies as well too. So I think that's very key. If you know now, start early, start the process early, and just that you don't rush it towards the end as well too. Especially if you have pets and children. Like for me, I'm just leaving on just me, and there's enough to do, right? But I can imagine if you have more people that you're responsible for, it's a lot more to take care of, and just to start the process early and just to be prepared. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. Take care of things the sooner you can, just because you just don't know what mishaps or bumps and last minute cancellations that might cause you to have to be flexible and adapt, and that just makes it a much more stressful situation as well too.
You decided you're leaving China. What's the first thing you need to do?
Right, start with making a list of all the things you need to do, right? It can be from a very mundane thing of, like I mentioned, clearing out your closet, figuring out packing. But if you have a lot of belongings, you also need to look into a shipping and relocation company perhaps as well too.
And there's agents for that,
yes,
right?
exactly. So there's a variety of different companies that have specialized in relocation and shipping services. So literally do a quick search online and you'll find them. There's also different agents that have just more local and even China Post, right? If you're just having some things where you're able to I can ship this myself, you can just go to the China Post and get it shipped out. They've got sea shipping and air shipping, which is at very reasonable cost from what I hear as well. So that's a big one. That's with kind of your physical belongings. But I think also there's an aspect of like we mentioned just now, the documents and the paperwork, making trips to the office, getting all that paperwork ready, particularly the non-criminal record and the tax certificates. Those are the two big documents.
Non-criminal record certificate. Where do you get that from?
So you go to the entry exit bureau to go and just get, with your passport. So however long you've lived in China for, in Beijing particularly, bring every passport that you've had that's had a Chinese visa in it and bring it to the entry exit bureau just to get a non-criminal record for the time being that you've been in China. Then afterwards, a lot of countries will require you to get the piece of paper notarized and translated because it's issued in Chinese. So that also takes time for you to go to the notary and the translation office.
And the non-criminal record usually takes about a week to be issued, and it lasts you 3 months.
Yes.
The actual notarization also takes about 2 weeks. So what other documents do we need to do?
Yeah, with the tax certificates. So for me personally, because I've been here for 10 years, I wanted to get all my tax paperwork just to prove that, I have paid the taxes. And also part of it, some people also use the tax certificate to be able to send more amounts of money to transfer back home to their bank accounts as well too, because there is a certain limit per day for non-Chinese nationals. For me, particularly right now, the last couple of years, Beijing actually changed its tax system. So there's actually an app that you can download. That's the individual income tax app, where you can download your tax certificates from your work from 2019 January until now. However, if you've been working before 2019, then you will need to go to the tax bureau to get that printed. Just bring the IDs that were associated with, or your passports that were associated when you worked and where you paid your income tax with when you were working. And then they will look it up, and then they can just print all that paperwork out very quickly. It's very simple. They are open only in the mornings and the afternoons. So just, plan for your time and to keep that in mind when you go there, just because there might be lineups, and also that will take some time just to figure out, where to go, what to do, because the offices are often quite big as well too.
So that's the tax certificate. What are the documents?
One thing that people have been really wanting to get at the moment, just in terms of COVID and the pandemic, is to get their international health travel certificate passport. And so this is often a document that's issued when you get a vaccine at the International Health Travel Center. And so for me personally, because I had traveled a couple years ago to a country where it required a yellow fever vaccine, and the yellow fever vaccine was only available from the International Health Travel Center. And so I had this yellow booklet. And so what I've done as I've gotten my COVID vaccines throughout my time in Beijing is that I brought the little book with me just to have them record it as well too, so that we can use it for later on. I know that right now, from what I'm understanding, is that the booklet isn't just issued for whenever you feel like it as well too. You can only get it for whenever you leave. And also I think, I understand there's also an app, but I'm not too sure, whether sometimes technology with non-Chinese national systems don't quite work. They're not the best fit, not a good marriage, I guess, in that sense. Another thing I would recommend is also like just seeing whether your country actually requires it. I wouldn't, push for getting paperwork that's not necessary if it's going to add to your load, because there's just so much that you do need to take care and think about when you're departing as well too.
And talking about documents, before you actually leave your workplace, what do you need to get from your current employers before you
Yes. So when you leave your current employer, you must make sure to get what we call an employment departure certificate that basically just kind of reads your name and has your details, and then it says, you were employed at the company from this date to this date, because that's very key for people who have visas. If you need to extend your visa into a stay permit, just to stay for some time after you finish your employment. Reference letters, that was always key to get, because you just never know when people, your current HR contact person or someone else that you work with, they may not be there by the time you need that documentation, and that will take some time to find and everything.
Any other documents that we need to discuss?
Obviously, there's also different things for when you have children or pets, so that's something that I'm not well versed in, because I have neither, but that's something that be sure to look into, just because they have documentation that probably needs to be associated for their departure and for flights as well too. So just keeping that in mind.
And also, these are the basic, I think, documents and requirements that any expat or foreigner living in China that is due to leave should look into. But of course, you need to look into your future employers, or whether it's your future school or country, see what their other requirements that they would need you to have before leaving China. And also give yourself enough time, of course, and do your research way in advance. These are just basic documents we're talking about, so hopefully that's helpful. So those are documents. In regards to moving, the logistics, etc., is there anything that we need to know?
I think, probably the physical moving aspect, I think people have a more, natural instinct of like what to do. Is like, okay, I'm sell things, I got to get rid of things. So, getting into the buy-sell group, so that if you plan to sell things, just because there's quite a big community and network here that would definitely take things off their hands, especially with nice things as well too that are in good quality. Definitely try and sell. Donating things. There's places like the Roundabout where you can arrange for them to come and pick up your things that you want to just donate to charity. I know a lot of people, their company may have a relocation allowance or arrangement. In that case, they can just help take care of that for you as well too. So I think that's the big thing in terms of physical moving, and also just tying up loose ends with your apartment, checking when your lease ends, and making sure you wrap things up well with your landlord or landlady.
Get your deposit back.
Yes, that's a big one.
Talking about getting money back, a very, very big one that people should not miss is getting your social insurance fund back.
For most employees in China and non-Chinese nationals, you're supposed to be enrolled in the social insurances scheme. They call it 社保 and 公积金, which is the social insurance and the public housing fund. These are the things that just get paid out of your paycheck towards these funds.
Automatically, right?
Automatically. It should be, like if your company is operating within, legitimate, frameworks, then you should be enrolled in that, and you should have
with your companies. Make sure that you're getting this.
Yes,
when
exactly.
you're in China.
And whenever you do leave China, then some of the funds is able to be returned to you, basically. So you get that money back. So that's.
Do you know how much or how to calculate?
I don't know how to calculate, but it's based off of specific percentages and based on your salary as well too. So for everyone, it's actually a bit different, but it's funds that are coming back to you. So I would definitely recommend taking care of that. Most people should get a Bank of Beijing Red Bank book. That's your medical insurance within the social insurance scheme. So that's something that you can already start withdrawing. If they give you the booklet, you can just start withdrawing from that bank account until the last month of your social insurance's employment as well too is covered as well too. So that's important, that one thing. And then there's a second one, which is I believe the pension, and so that's something that needs to be arranged with your HR probably on that. At my last company, we had a third-party vendor that was helping with this. So essentially what we did was that we just made sure to submit the right paperwork for them to process this payment, and then the payment would be then sent to the employee's bank account.
Sending money home is also another big one, and I think people sometimes leave that very to the last minute.
For those of you who don't know, I think right now the daily limit, from what I last checked, I remember you can only transfer up to 500 USD or exchange up to 500 USD per day. And technically you're not supposed to be going into the same bank, going in and just exchanging that kind of money. And also it's a big task, right? It takes time and everything as well too. And so that's why we mentioned the tax paperwork that can help with transferring bigger amounts. There's also a limited amount of cash that you can carry with you on the flight as well too. And no one wants to take the risk as well too. I think that's something to keep in mind as well.
Start early.
Yes.
So if you're going to leave, you need to start sending money home immediately.
Yeah, if your company's not able to do that for you.
you.
Yeah, I also still know people who, have left and still are trying to access money from their China accounts because they had limitations, right?
Yeah.
And also there are fees involved with transferring as well too. And so I know for some big banks, Union Pay is quite well known in a lot of countries now. So you can technically just bring your bank card, Bank of China, ATM or whatever in, Canada or Hong Kong or wherever, and then just be able to withdraw money with the fee.
People asking, should people cancel their cell phone numbers and unlink your WeChat with your cell phone?
Yeah, I think that's definitely to each individual's discretion. Like if you're thinking of maybe one day I'll come back, it might be good to keep your number and just to keep the WeChat, because I think I'm understanding that once your money runs out on your mobile phone payment, they might just discontinue and deactivate everything as well too.
And give your phone number to someone else, right? If you don't want other people having your phone number, you definitely need to check into how you can continue.
Yeah. So personally, I think for me, I'll probably keep mine just for keeping in touch with people as well too, and just to be able to, like I mentioned, make payments here and there with WeChat or Alipay, just for anything individually, or if I'm missing a bill that I forgot to pay and things like that. So that's something, just a lot of things with that, you just never know what might pop up as well too, and so just to keep that in mind. Another thing I wanted to highlight besides the physical and okay, these are the list of things to do, is to also prepare for the emotional and mental state of departures and transition as well too. I think it's really key to know where you're at. There are so many resources and books that you could be reading or looking into just to prepare yourself for moving and relocating, or just for any change. I'm very grateful that my local church had arranged for a departure hall seminar where they worked with someone who's very used to working with third culture kids and change and cultural changes and transitions as well too, just to identify those things and understanding okay, what are the different stages, understanding grief in transition as well too, and also giving grace to yourself and just being telling yourself it's okay that when you have a bad day, it's hard, or it feels like that you haven't done anything in the day because you're doing a lot. Thinking takes a lot as well too. So I think that's very key that people forget about. That I would say that's definitely a top 3 things. Take care of yourself and think about what resources you need for your transition, not just for yourself but for your family and pets as well too. And I think also on the other side of just kind of the more emotional mental thing is also just to keep in mind you are grieving as well too. It's a big change and stuff, so you're gonna feel the emotions, and that's okay to be sad, even though it's the right decision to be leaving as well too. That's giving yourself just extra kindness and patience and rest when you're in departure mode as well too. It's okay to feel this way, or it's okay to not do this, or to give yourself patience and grace, and also just to figure out what to do, and learning from other people who've left as well too. And so I think that's very key as well too. And particularly, it's one thing to resettle to a new place, right? But also even repatriation is quite key as well too. The longer you've been out, the longer it does take for you to, feel settled again. There's one thing between getting a grasp on daily routines and everything as well too, but it's another thing to feel like, oh, I'm home again, I'm settled as well too. So that's why it's super crucial to understand that and to give yourself, some extra kindness and patience